Bat fans. This is Batman.
And Robin, the Boy Wonder.
And me too, Batmite.
Welcoming you to the new adventures of Batman. Watch us wage our never-ending battle of good versus evil.
Ride with us as we chase the greatest array of villains the world has ever seen, proving that crime does not pay.
Get set for thrills and action. Join me, Batman.
And me, Robin the Boy Wonder.
And Batgirl. And me too, Batmite.
In the super new adventures of
Batman.
Welcome back, citizens, to an all-new episode of the Batcave Podcast. It's your old bat chum, John S. Drew here, and we're moving on to episode 2 of the Filmation 1977, The New Adventures of Batman series. And joining me once again here in the Batcave, taking a step away from his own lair, is the producer and host of the Comic Book Central podcast, Joe Stuber. Hey, Joe.
Far out. Hey, John.
How are you?
How are you?
I'm good. I'm sorry.
I'm over the moon.
You know what? I am so excited by this one because I know I was a little on the darker side, a little more down, and thinking to myself, oh no. And I'm like really glad I got you here to lighten up, to sort of balance my downerness on this, I was thinking. But then I'm like watching this episode, The Moonman, we're going to talk about today. And as I said to you before we started the show, I was grinning from ear to ear throughout the entire episode. It was so much fun.
Well, that's good. Maybe we got the yin and yang going because I'm not as big on this.
Oh my goodness.
Well, I mean, I like it. Look, I like the whole series. Let's put it out there. Yeah. I like the whole series. Sure. They're fun. They're fun to watch. I don't know that I like this as much as the past. I really thought that was a fun one.
It was fun.
But there are a lot of things about this episode I really like. We'll talk about those. But I think it's kind of cool that I think you're going to be a little bit more positive about this episode than I am. So that's kind of cool. Maybe we'll just kind of go back and forth on these. Who knows? And we'll strike a balance. But overall, I like it. It's still fun.
Yeah, no, I just, the episode, like I said, we're talking about is The Moonman, aired February 19th, 1977, written by Chuck Menville. And as we were also discussing, a man who has quite a list of credits to his name in terms of television writing, mostly animated fare, but he also did some live action stuff, including, near and dear to my heart, Shazam and ISIS with my Shazam ISIS podcast. So
yeah, he did several episodes of that. The Tarzan cartoon, which was paired up with this Batman for the Batman Tarzan Adventure Hour.
Yes. He
passed away, unfortunately, in 1992. But he had written an episode of one of the last credits he has. He wrote an episode of the Batman the Animated Series, Birds of a Feather, which I thought was kind of cool. That was an interesting one to go on, a penguin-centric episode. So yeah, a lot of credits to his name and a lot of Batman credits, and I think 6 episodes of this series. So we can look forward to a lot of Chuck Menville in this series.
Yes, yeah, and if this episode is any indication of what to go by, then I'm looking forward to those myself. I got a ton of notes. I mean, there was just so many things. I'm like, oh, that's cool, and then there were some things, I laughed at. There's some gaffes. I mean, right off the bat, there's a scene with our Moonman, our villain, who's robbing the museum.
Hold it. Just put that back and stay where you are. Security, this is Ryan. Red alert! Red alert!
And I had to laugh because the guard is holding the walkie-talkie wrong. Or at least I think he's holding it wrong because it looks like the push button or whatever you talk into is facing outward. And I'm like, where is he talking into now?
Gaffes in a Filmation animated episode? I'm shocked. John, this is shocking to me. I'm gonna have to go back and rewatch all of these things. Look, that's part and parcel of what you get with Filmation, right? We've talked about that before. Filmation gives and Filmation takes away. One thing I want to mention before we get going, just a couple of updates since our last episode.
Yes,
we talk about Filmation. If people out there don't have that book, Filmation Generation, it's very cool. It's by Tomorrow's Publishing. I don't know that the print copy is still available. You can check out their website, but I know the digital copy. You can get a digital copy of it, and there are a few pages devoted to this series in there. And it was interesting. I had a chance to go through it and picked up a couple little tidbits here and there, and we can sprinkle those in as we go through. Last time we got together, we also mentioned the Figures Toy Company, how they were doing a line of toys based on this animated series. I don't know why, but that's cool, right?
Yep. They've
got Batman, they've announced Joker, and I don't know if you saw this or not, they announced Riddler in his pink costume is like okay, this just seems like somebody's having fun with this series, with this toy line.
Right.
Because that's not the one you'd release. First of all, Riddler was never in the series. We joked that he's in the opening, but he never appears in the series. He wears a pink outfit. But they're doing an action figure based on that, which I thought was kind of cool.
You know, actually, now that I just thought about this because I just released, as we're recording this, I released today the Filmation files as part of my World's Greatest Super Friends podcast episode. And in that, we're doing, for the Filmation files, Dan Greenfield and I are looking at the shorts of, Justice League of America, Teen Titans from the 60s Filmation cartoon series, Aquaman and such. And just as Riddler does not appear in this Filmation Batman series, Aquaman does not appear in the JLA, but he's given credit in the opening credits. And they even say Aquaman, and it's like, where is he?
Yeah. It's again, there's so many odd things, but yeah, you think, especially with the toy line, you think they'd, Robin, right? Maybe.
Sure.
Be going Batgirl. That'd be kind of
Batmite.
Yeah, Batmite would be perfect, but they're going with Pink Riddler, so it's very strange. And by the way, I let you know off mic, but I'll let the listeners know too. I did order the DVD. It should be here pretty soon.
Cool.
With the retrospective on it. Hopefully I got the right one this time. So I'm going to end up with 2 copies of this. Who knows? Maybe we'll give the other one away on the show. Maybe we'll give it away to a listener or something like that.
Oh, that'd be cool.
We'll see. Yeah. But I do want to check out that retrospective that's on the DVD set. So those are the updates since last we got together. But yeah, so maybe they'll do a Moonman action figure.
Maybe
that'd be kind of cool.
That would I would be right there getting one. I again, just everything, from the very beginning, the opening shots of Gotham City as they do it from overhead and then they fade to closer and then they finally fade to the museum. I just love the angle, and we get the similar shot later on when we're establishing Wayne Manor, which is also something else I have to appreciate. As much as we see a lot of the standard shots of Batman and Robin swinging, or the punches, or Robin throwing the Batarang, or things like that are the stock footage, they go out of their way in this series to do different establishing shots from time to time. When Batman and Robin emerge from the bat poles, this time the running and jumping into the car is a different angle than it was in the previous episode.
Yeah, it's like in silhouette too, right?
Yes.
Like it's not like full on, so that you get that real dark noir kind of feel to it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of weird because again, it's just this mixed bag with Filmation because they eventually end up in a carnival, which don't these things always end up in a carnival? But they kind of do the Scooby-Doo thing where like they just keep running past the same backgrounds over and over because you see the same like cotton candy stand going by a bunch of times. So that's the drawback of Filmation. But then they give you these like beautifully rendered angles and different things. So yeah, there is such a very cool look to Filmation series, especially this one. Yeah, because you do get to do a lot of things. Speaking of Wayne Manor, though, and look, again, people are going to go back and forth on whether they love or hate Batmite. I can understand both sides of that argument. I kind of land on the side that I like the little dude. Okay, we talked in the last episode about how Adam West got to play like irritated Batman in this one, where he was like stalwart Batman in the series, but in this one he's irritated Batman. Isn't there an argument to be made that Dick Grayson is much more irritating than Batmite? We got peanut butter and sardines in the last one, why? And now he's like setting off rockets in Wayne Manor.
Well, there's that.
Why?
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition! It works, Bruce. It works! Lift off! Runaway rocket that's out of control! Hey, how am I supposed to take a nap with all this? I'm sorry, Scott. I guess I forgot to read all of the directions.
Everything's cool, little buddy. I needed something to wake me up. I must be the sleepiest house guest you two guys ever had.
You're probably still recovering from your last mission.
Yeah, being the first astronaut to solo to the moon and back has got to take a lot out of you.
Well, it was easy compared to all these public appearances I'm making now. Ah, well, I guess being a famous and handsome astronaut has its drawbacks.
Now there's the Scott Rogers I remember from college. A swell guy with a swelled head.
Why is he setting off rockets? And Wayne, you have a whole yard. Like, you have a whole... Go outside. Why is he... And it, like, tears through and it rips Bruce's Gotham Gazette. And, just... Why? I would be like, Dick, really? Like, right in front of me in the living room. Like, I'm sitting here reading paper and you're setting off a rocket. So, I'm sorry. But Dick Grayson does more damage in this episode than Batmite does. Sorry. Just saying. I'm just putting that out there.
I can't disagree with you. And I think it also odd that he's doing his rocket experiments not only in the house, but he's wearing a suit while he does it.
Yeah. I think, isn't that a throwback to the series, though, a little bit?
Sure.
They were always walking around in suits and like dressed up. And I think that was like a 60s thing, which kind of carried over. The 60s show definitely carries over into the show.
Oh, absolutely.
And you kind of see this thing. But he should have been like in jeans and a t-shirt or something.
I mean, this whole thing, carries over the 60s thing because, when they go, it's like they see the bat signal and they run to the bat poles. They come out the car. Then we get the drive. You can almost hear the Batman 66 theme and expect the credit to pop up as whomever, as Moonman or something,
Right,
and then they
special guest appearance.
Right, special guest appearance, that kind of thing. It definitely has all that 60s, the 66 vibe to it and all. But who
would you cast as Moonman? I guess. Yeah, let's who would you cast? Like just maybe Cleavon Little or something.
Maybe, there you go.
That would have been like a cool one.
I could see that. I could definitely see that. I did like the whole thing with Moonman, though, and I loved his voice.
Away. The Moonman or Rogers?
Moonman, not Rogers. I actually wish they had brought somebody. I was hoping they would have gotten somebody else besides Weinrib to do it.
Yeah, that would have cost money.
Yeah, I know. But
as we've said, he did all the voices.
I know.
Yeah, I love his Moonman, which obviously they had run it through some type of machine or something like that, like they did with Scheimer and Batmite. But yeah, the Rogers, and we'll talk about a little bit with the origin of the character, but he sounds a lot like Casey Kasem. Like didn't you get that he was trying to do Casey Kasem? Like maybe because they were competing with Hanna-Barbera a little bit.
Maybe,
It just didn't seem to fit the character.
No, it didn't.
It seemed a little too light for the character. His Gordon seems more imposing. And the character in this of Steve Rogers is not Captain America, by the way. He's a big dude, and he's like bigger than Bruce Wayne, I think, in the initial shots and things like that. Just didn't feel like the voice matched it. It seemed like a little too higher, a little too Casey Kasem, and it didn't go like full Shaggy, but it was definitely like that Casey Kasem kind of vibe for me.
I did find, though, that I was fascinated with the character of Scott Rogers, the whole thing, famous astronaut. I like how he even can laugh at himself a little bit. And of course, Bruce turns around and says, that's always been his style to sort of build himself up and everything. But he laughs at the fact that he's famous and handsome and can joke about it and all. And then, of course, he's got a sort of, I almost want to say, relationship with Barbara in this, because now we also get Barbara Gordon for the first time.
We'll talk about that. But that is one of my favorite parts of the episode, is that we get the introduction to Batgirl in this series. So that's very cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Now I you mentioned Batmite. I sat there because I'm watching it and I'm going, there's no Batmite yet. There's no Batmite yet. Then we get 5 minutes into it. And I'm like, there's still no Batmite. He didn't pop out when they. And that's why I also say 60s vibe, because he didn't just suddenly appear and on top of the car or anything. The Batmobile as it's driving to headquarters. 5 minutes, 40 seconds.
Busy. Huh, guys?
Batmite.
Listen, the Moonman's right down my alley. Me being from outer space myself. So let's just erase what you've done so far and start over.
Oh, no, you little squirt.
What did I do?
Nothing yet, and that's the way we want to keep it. Just sit tight and don't get too close.
Bat baloney.
There he is. you know.
Yeah, if you're not a big Batmite fan, this is Batmite light on this episode. So
It is.
yeah, and it's fine. He pops up, I guess, kind of when he needs to. Just a little comic relief here and there. But you got so much going on. I mean, with Batgirl and everything. But I love, we alluded to this, I love the fact how he perceives Batgirl, what he thinks of Batgirl. He totally has the hots for her.
Oh, yeah.
And it's hilarious. I think that's hilarious.
Oh, yeah.
His reaction. He's just like, this little horn dog from another dimension. And he just like loses it when she appears on screen. And that's the weird thing is because, do you play up that angle of Dick Grayson and Barbara Gordon? Like, do you play that up in the series? Which they don't.
No.
They obviously play it up in the, in the 90s. But you do get a lot of that comedy coming from Batmite and Batgirl, which is pretty cool.
You get that comedy. And I got to say, on the one level, yes, he's there for a bit of comic relief. He's not used as much. But when he is there, he's actually useful. And to a certain extent, he could be right about something. Like he says, I do know something about space. I could help you in some way. And, Robin just punks him down in a chair and pushes him aside and says, sit over there.
Right. He makes a valid point. Yeah. I mean, he's an interdimensional being, so he should know a thing or two on this. That's what I say. I think he gets a bad rap a lot of times.
Yeah.
And I think he's much more, I agree with you. I think he's much more helpful in this episode than in others. I think basically my problem with it is it's not a great villain. It's not like, and I don't even know if I really call him a villain. Right. I don't know. It's just kind of weird. Let's maybe talk about Moonman a little bit. I thought it was pretty cool. In that book, Scheimer refers to the fact that they use some, villains from Batman comics, and then they created their own, and he includes Moonman in that. Okay, Scheimer might not have known about it, but Chuck Menville, I'm sure, definitely had been checking out the comics, especially World's Finest issue number 98 from December 1958, because we do have the Moonman.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And it's Bryce Rogers.
Yes. Same last name, though.
Yeah. So, look, is it a brand new creation? I don't think so. Did Menville see the comic book? I'm guessing he probably mined some DC Comics for some villains because, Filmation, especially with ISIS, they like to create their own characters so that if down the road they need them, they own them.
Right.
And they kind of did that with ISIS. So it's possible that it was like, let's take Moonman, but not use the specific Moonman from the comics because it is different. Like the costume's different and everything. But yeah, Bryce Rogers to Steve Rogers. And didn't somebody tap him on the shoulder and go, Marvel has a Steve Rogers?
Well, no, it's not Steve. It's Scott Rogers.
Oh, it's Scott Rogers.
Scott Rogers, yeah.
I had Steve.
Because you got Steve Rogers. I just figured you were just making the mistake because it was stuck in your head that Steve Rogers, but Scott Rogers. Yeah, his name is Scott Rogers in the cartoon. Oh yeah.
No, I haven't had enough coffee yet either, so that's probably part.
But the thing.
Scott Rogers. Okay, we're okay with Scott Rogers.
Yeah,
but it's definitely a lift from the comic books.
Oh, it is. It is. I mean, I got a chance to read it thanks to the DC app. In fact, it was funny after I watched the episode on the DC app. It suggested, would you like to read the comic book? So it was like, okay. Yeah. So I go through it. I mean, he's got the same last name. He's an astronaut himself. In this case, it's World's Finest. So Superman's included. And he gets his lift to the moon by having Superman hurl his rocket at the moon. Right. I guess they don't have the projection fuel yet to do it right. So Superman has to give him an assist. He orbits the moon. And while he does the same thing, a comet passes by. And they don't get into the whole thing of moonlight affecting him, but just the moon, that he comes out at night and he becomes a different person, just like in this cartoon. The thing is, though, the difference being Moonman here is very specific about the moon. Like he's protective of the moon and all its elements and such. Whereas in the comic book, he just becomes a costume villain named Moonman, a different personality. But everything is just moon related. Like he steals the moon chariot. It's just called the moon chariot, so he steals it. But it's also got
there's a reference in there where he says like I have to because what was it the moon god or something? Like,
right.
The princess had to get. So he was almost like saying like I need to. There's a line in the comic I remember. It was something about like he had to take this back to the moon or return to the moon what's hers or something like that.
Right.
So there is a little bit of that possessiveness
Right.
between the moon and the things that are on the earth from the moon that they kind of took. The stuff in the comic books, though, was a little bit more interesting. I think that's maybe the problem. Like what he's doing in this episode isn't all that interesting to me. It's like a couple of tracks from a roller coaster have some moon material. So he has to take these 2 tracks out.
Yeah, I thought that because when they first said the moon ride, I'm like, oh great, he's just going to be a gimmick villain who's going. But then it's like, no, and there's that line.
I shall return to the moon what is the moon's. She will not be robbed of her resources as Earth has been.
I bought it. I mean, granted, I'm like going, what is moon metal? What is moon material? But whatever.
To me was like the easy fix there. And come on, you only put in like 2 little tracks and it's over like, wouldn't you just put that like right at the beginning of the ride or something just to make it cool, but not like, I don't know.
In the middle but that allows for the gyros to their what do you call it? Their tracks, their skids, the landing part of
little rudders,
the rudder things. Rudders. Yeah. That allows Batman and Robin to use them in place of the tracks that the Moon Man takes away.
And they just happen to fit perfectly.
Yes.
And the design from the upside, they put them in upside down and I guess if a year later we don't question how a speeding locomotive goes over Christopher Reeve without going off the tracks, I guess we can't question this either. I don't know. It just seemed a little weak. I took it as like you were looking at, it's the moon ride. This might be too convenient. I took it as, I bet Filmation had a lot of stock footage of roller coasters from other animated episodes. Sure.
Yeah.
And they had to figure out a way to use this. They probably went to Chuck and went, can you do something with a roller coaster? Because we need to repurpose this stuff. And he probably, well, what if a piece of the track, and to his credit, I guess he worked it in. But I don't know. That whole section seemed kind of lame to me. I think that's where it kind of lost me a little bit.
Right.
Anyway.
But you know what? But it does lead to something, though, that you pointed out last time. We'd only seen it in the closing credits of the first episode, but now we got a ton of it in this one, is the gymnastics.
See any sign of him, Robin?
There!
As Batman and Robin are swinging around and bouncing around and doing backflips and whatever, if they hadn't wasted so much time doing gymnastics chasing after Moonman, they probably would have caught him.
He was only like 10 feet away at the cotton candy stand, so like they could have been going. But
holy traffic jams!
There's only one thing to do in a sticky situation like this. Unstick it.
Yeah, and that's what I love about you look at the rotoscoping technique that Filmation used, and it was used a lot of stuff. It's used in Ralph Bakshi.
Dynamic duo! Over here!
I was afraid of that. The Moon Man escaped.
Gordon here.
Barbara, you still at the amphitheater?
Yes, Dad, why?
The Moon Man struck again, this time at the fun park. He's reported headed your way.
10-4. I'll keep my eyes open.
You got the kind of Scooby-Doo running past the same backgrounds. That's kind of lame. But then you have these rotoscoping techniques where it really looks fluid and there looks like weight and heft to the characters. And that just gives it a really interesting look. Speaking of interesting looks, I was curious to find out your take on the Moon Man's appearance. Because I'm wondering if he was called Moon Man based on the way the animators depicted him from behind.
Okay, it took me a second. Yeah,
a little odd, but when he's running it, really, like I had to go back and look at him. Like, yeah, they really he was from behind. He's very anatomically correct.
Yes,
because like from the front, it kind of looks like a glowing spandexy kind of like I don't know what this suit's supposed to be made of, glowing moon material. I don't know. But that was a problem I know they had on Spider-Man as Amazing Friends when the artists were rendering Firestar. In the first season, they made her look too realistic, let's say.
Yes.
And they were told to tone it down to where they had to like smooth out the back side of Firestar because it's a kid's show. And I'm looking at this thing going, I is a golden naked man run into the House of Horrors or whatever it is. I don't know. It was a little strange to me. Sorry. A little strange to me.
No. I mean, that it's funny. That's your takeaway. My takeaway, and especially at the very end when we see Moonman revert back to Scott, I'm like going, where did all the hair go? Because he had a big, afro on his head.
Yeah.
And I'm like, where did the hair grow when he becomes Moonman?
I guess it just transforms into, I don't know. Again, it's completely different than in the comic.
Yes.
The look wise.
Yeah.
Again, similar styles as to the origin of the character and what he does. He has the magnet. He always puts his hand out with the magnetic powers. And so they got that from that and pulling, the moon in toward and things like that. But the look is completely different. In the comic book, I don't know where he got the suit. There's like a cape and there's like a moon emblem, moon logo on his chest. And he's got a mask. So yeah, I don't know where that came from. The radioactive dust. I don't know.
I did
just one of those comic book things that just appear. So maybe the same thing with the hair and the look.
Right. I did like in the comic book also the added wrinkle that local villains found out about Moonman and were like, hey, we should team up with him. That isn't done at all in the cartoon.
That probably would have sold the episode to me.
Okay.
Of course, it would have required more voice work.
Right.
They're trimming the fat here. But I think that would have made a more interesting story than him just kind of randomly going to places and just kind of taking some things. That would have added a little bit more heft to the story. But again, it's a, 22-minute cartoon?
Yeah.
There's only so much you can do with it. So I thought the character was kind of cool. Yeah. I like the fact that he only made one appearance in the comic books.
Yeah.
And I think there's a reference in another issue of World's Finest, and there's a reprint episode. But I think it was kind of the beginning and the end of this character. I like the fact that they turned that into an animated villain. So that was pretty cool. But he's just not my favorite. It kind of, in some respect, reminded me a little bit of Man-Wolf from Marvel Comics.
Yes.
The astronaut go, a little bit. But Man-Wolf much cooler, much, much cooler.
Well, Man-Wolf, and also just the whole... Because it's funny, the first episode we watched, it was Joker mostly. We had that professor, he's balding. But there really weren't a lot of, Gotham citizens in that first episode. Here, we're on the fairgrounds. We're seeing a multitude of people. We see Scott Rogers. All the character designs definitely have a 70s feel. And it actually felt more like a Marvel cartoon, just with the characters in their background, than it did a DC cartoon to me in that regard. And I thought it was also interesting because there you've also got the 68 Batman designs, as far as Batman and Robin running through this fairgrounds, updated, given a little polishing, and they're a lot brighter and stuff. And it worked. But there's Batman and Robin from the 60s running among the 70s crowd. I don't know. I just found it very interesting. And then I also got to say, once again, Batmite proving useful because he points out, he went over there, Batman. He went over there. He doesn't say, I got him. He doesn't do anything. He points out where Moonman went. And how do you know we lost Moonman? This made me crack up. He's like, oh, he got away. Because why? We're at the exit to the fair. So he got away. It's like, you could go through the exit too, Batman.
Yeah. And that's always the thing. We've said, my wife and I watch TV shows all the time, and it's like the villain will get away or something. And it's like, because you've reached the end of something.
Right.
And they're like, oh, and I'm like, but you can do what they did. We always say that, you can still go after them. Just because you reached the end of an alleyway or something, you could,
Yep.
Yeah. But then that would end the episode if they caught them right then. So you got to drag it out a little bit more. But I really, there's enough. It's just the right amount of Batmite in this.
Just the right amount, at least for me anyway. I could definitely say that.
I think the chemistry, the comedy between him and Batgirl, I think just works in this. Yeah. I think that because that's what you want in an animated series. You want that little mascot. We talked about this on the last episode, that mascot coming in to provide comic relief, whether it's Gleek or Wonder Dog or something like that. But like in the case of Scrappy Doo, it just becomes really irritating. And I think because he was overused. I mean, the show was about, they had a show about Scrappy Doo. So I think just because it was overused, I think when you just sprinkle the comedic moments in, it just lightens everything up. And it just, I thought Menville did a perfect job story structure wise with this one.
No, I agree. I totally agree. Story structure wise, I liked, he works in Batgirl very nicely. And she, again, doesn't appear until well into the story. Halfway in, it's Barbara for a good part of it there, which is kind of reminiscent of the 66 show because towards the end, they actually put more of Barbara in doing things before Batgirl would just show up to sort of finish the episode off with the bat fight or whatever.
Do the kick or something,
Right.
yeah, or like have Batman and Robin like toss her through the air while she does a kick or something. Yeah. It's very much influenced by the 66 series. You can tell Menville watched a lot of that and brought enough elements in the comic in to make it interesting. Overall, I mean, I think it's a good episode. I do think it's a good episode. I just don't think it's one of the more fascinating ones of it.
Right.
I mean, look, I know we've got Catwoman coming up. There's just, Moonman's just okay for me in this one. Just the character of Moonman. I just thought, it was just all right.
Now, I got to say, though, with Batgirl, very happy to see her. Not happy, though, with the Batgirl cycle. I didn't think that motorcycle looked at all impressive. I know we were talking about, the cool cars in the last episode and stuff and how there should be a toy line for that. And I know Dan Greenfield and I always talked about it with 68's Filmation. This Batgirl cycle is just dull looking and it's red.
Yeah, and it needs a tune-up.
Yes.
Well, that's good, because I was starting to get mad about it, and when I get mad... Earthquake! Earthquake!
I think we've seen the last of Batmite for a while.
And the last of the Moonman forever.
Amen.
Scares the heck out of Batmite at the end of the episode.
Does he think it's the earthquake again? How loud is that motorcycle? Like, she's not sneaking up on anybody. You think like be some bat stealth mode or something like that on there. But yeah, just get a tune-up. Yeah, I was just okay with the bat cycle on this one.
Yeah.
But again, I just do love the fact that they're bringing in all these different bat vehicles because you couldn't do that in the 66 series. You could do it in the movie. I mean, obviously we had the bat cycle and the Batmobile, but they just bring in like so many different things. Again, we'll see what toys come out of this. I know we get some action figures, but that'd be kind of cool if we got a whole new line of bat toys out of this. The bat gyros. We need the bat gyros.
Bat gyros would be nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
I say that, and yet I do like the Batcopter, even though it's red.
Yeah, I don't know what the color schemes. I don't know what they were looking at.
Right.
I mean, I know they were just mixing things up, but again, what were they looking at for reference?
I don't know.
They could have been looking. They should have been looking at like the Mego toy line or something like that because they got a lot of the color scheme down right on those things. So. Again, sometimes you get, but then again, we have the infamous appearance and disappearance of Robin's R on his costume in this one. So
yes.
There's just a lot of like coloring and details that I forgive in Filmation.
Yep.
I just kind of focus on the story and what's going on. And it's just like some of the drawings, like you say, are flip flopped.
Yes.
But they put them in. We see a lot of that stuff. Even the missing R, I think that was spoofed in a Scooby-Doo episode, like one of the more recent ones. I think it was like Batman, Robin meets Scooby-Doo. They did a revised version of it, and they referenced like all the Filmation mistakes. That stuff. It's the disappearing R throughout it. Again, you have to kind of be forgiving with the Filmation stuff. It's just they were cranking this stuff out. So, but yeah, the coloring is a little odd. Yeah, well, you got a pink Riddler, so what What are you going to do?
What are you going to exactly? Yeah. Another 66 reference. And I know it's not really a 66 reference. I mean, I'm sure there's other shows that have done it and such, but I did like the fact that Batman's using the voice analyzer to try and figure out who Moonman is. Although it also was convenient that Scott decided to record his thoughts so that he could figure out what's happening to him because he doesn't remember ever being the Moonman. And that's another throwback to the comic book as well, because the Rogers couldn't remember either his crimes.
No, in the comic book, he woke up and found all the stolen loot and everything in his garage.
Yes,
and was like, "Oh, the Moonman must have stashed it here," and there's his costume. I'm like, "Come on!" And then Batman and Robin show up, and they're like, "Oh my, we'll wait for him here." I'm like, guys,
he's right there. I know.
I know. But definitely inspired by that comic book because there's so many different elements in there. But yeah, a one-off in the comic book, a one-off here in Batman animated. So I think that's enough for Moonman. I don't I don't need to see him anymore.
Okay.
I think even at the end, they reference that that's the last of Batmite and Moonman for a while, and Adam's amen.
Amen. Yes, his amen at the end. Well,
that's kind of what I thought a little bit. I kind of thought amen.
Well, like in the comic, he basically loses his power over time anyway. It wasn't a permanent thing, or at least in the cartoon, he drains himself because he spends so much energy pulling the moon and putting it back in place that it's gone. I did laugh though. There's a line there from Robin when the earth is shaking and the roads are splitting and there's the wave coming towards Gotham City and everything because the moon's out of its orbit now and everything. And Robin just says,
Batman, I humbly suggest we think of something. And fast! There's a tidal wave forming beyond Gotham Harbor.
And I'm just like, oh my God, that's so funny.
That was such a strange line.
Yeah.
And I loved it too because he's so like holy this and holy that and everything is just like has to be in the moment.
Yes.
And he was so polite in that. It was such a strange line read that I liked it.
Yes,
I don't know
too.
that it fit. But that one jumped out at me as well.
And I just want to touch base on something you said earlier, because you said you wanted to talk a little more about it, was the whole Barbara Scott relationship, because in the end, it's basically Batgirl who talks him down in this whole thing. And I would have liked even a throwaway line to something to the effect of like, wow, Batgirl, I feel like I can trust you. And so like, some way or something like he just gives in a little too easily. And I thought, God, wouldn't it have been great if like almost like he picked up on the fact that Batgirl and Barbara have similar vibes?
Yeah, he could put two and two together or something. Because I think isn't the line like, maybe Batgirl or Barbara can't talk to him, but maybe Batgirl can.
Yes,
and then it's like switch the transformation. Yeah. So there was some relationship there. That's why I say it just, I mean, there's so many things I could have tweaked in this, but overall, it's a good episode. I just wouldn't put it in the great category of the series right now. Yeah, there's just a couple like little head scratcher moments, just especially with the bat gyros doing that. Like I don't know what they were planning to do with it, but it's just running through the carnival. And it just I don't know. It's a good episode. I don't think I like this one as much as you do. Okay. I like it. I just don't think I like it as much. I didn't sit there with a smile.
I was smiling. I know. That's good.
That's the great thing about this series. I think there's just a little bit of something for everybody in it. They're not all going to be, some are moon rocks, some are gold rocks. I don't know, but there's a little bit of something for everybody.
I got a rock.
I thought, what's that?
I got a rock.
I just in this one I really love the chemistry between Batmite and Batgirl. I just thought that was pretty cool. So that was my favorite part of the episode.
And that's going to carry through, if I remember correctly, through the series. Is that crush that and he'll do anything for her type deal, which is cute. I don't know if you got a chance to check Facebook or if you got a notification about this. Will Rogers, who wrote the Super Friends companion book that you had on Comic Book Central, I believe.
Had him and Billy Ray Bates on. Yeah, they wrote a bunch of superhero books covering superheroes and media. I'm actually looking at my Super Friends books right now. Yeah, they were great guests. I did a Super Friends themed episode and had them on as guests on that one as well. But yeah, he's a huge Super Friends fan and a huge New Adventures of Batman fan.
Yeah,
well.
He points this episode out as his favorite, the best out of the whole series.
Yeah, again, that's fine. It's all good.
Right.
I like the bat. I like the pest.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of people that don't because it's so Batmite centric in it. I just kind of like the goofy little dude. I wanted like a couple more scenes with him maybe in this one. But, but again, it is the right amount of Batmite for the overall series. I know you can't put him in if it's too much. I don't know. I think I just go back to that first episode where he's like crying in the bath in the batboat. I don't know. I just kind of locked in on the little guy. I'm kind of reliving these again, but that's the cool thing about this. Everybody's going to have their favorite, and it's not just the Riddler, it's not the Riddler at all, but it's not just like Joker or Penguin, the main ones. You do have some villains coming in that are new. Unique to this series and ones that really haven't been represented well up to this point. So that's the cool thing about this is that you do have a villain that just had a one shot in a comic in 1958. Yeah, that alone is cool. So yeah, I can completely understand Will loving this episode as his favorite. And I totally get while you were grooving on it as well. I don't know. I think once the rudders hit the roller coaster thing, I was like, all right. All right.
Well, DC Universe didn't list it in their top 5 there. Remember, I told you about how the Pest made their top 5 list there. This one didn't. So, all
right.
Yeah, there you go. But I think, and I like this. I like the fact that you and I are coming at it, and sometimes, like you said, we're going to like it. Sometimes, we're going to not. Sometimes I'm going to like it. You won't. That's the beauty of it, and we can discuss it. And then sometimes, who knows? You might make me change my mind and say, "Oh wow, maybe I'm just I'm grooving on it too much."
I just can't unsee Moonman from behind. I think maybe that's the problem. I just can't unsee that.
Now I got to go back and look. Butt. Now I want to go back and look for it. I'm sorry. That's just
no, don't. You won't be able to unsee it either.
I'll tell you, folks.
It's definitely unique to this episode.
There you go. That way. There will be no pictures posted on the Facebook page. I promise you of that. So,
thank you. On behalf of your fans on the Facebook page, yes, thank you.
And now these messages.
When I was a kid, the closest you could get me to a fish was the aquarium. Now, thanks to McDonald's, I'm the expert. You see, most fish is not government inspected, but all McDonald's fish is U.S. government inspected grade A. And it's all prime white filet. No fish cakes, not ground up, not mixed with other fish. It's a filet of fish. The best-selling fish sandwich in America.
Tell them your nickname, Henry.
They call me Jaws.
Quality you can taste.
My baloney has a first name. It's O-S-C-A-R. My baloney has a second name. It's M-A-Y-E-R. Oh, I love to eat it every day. And if you ask me why, I'll say, 'cause Oscar Mayer has a way with B-O-L-O-G-N-A.
Oscar Mayer, the first name in Bologna.
How's that?
That message.
We sure had some problems with the Moonman tonight.
And they were problems that could have been solved much sooner if only Scott Rogers had been willing to discuss what was bothering him.
We all have problems from time to time, and it sure helps to talk them out with people we trust.
I got a problem. I can't swim.
Why is that a problem?
'Cause I can't fix leaks either.
Oh, no.
One thing I wasn't, again, another kind of weak moment for me in this episode was the Bat message. Because in Filmation, they always had to teach you something.
Yes.
Which I like.
Yeah.
I do like that little kids get to learn something. This one felt really forced to me. I don't know about you.
Oh,
but
yeah,
it was I was like.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's what I say. I say this whole thing with the Bat message is just, we're Filmation. This is what we do. We've been doing it with Shazam and ISIS. I think they even did it with the Brady kids to a certain extent. So it's like, we're, and they'll continue it on with He-Man and She-Ra in the 80s.
Fat Albert. Fat Albert always taught you something.
Right.
Yeah, they always had to teach. And so I respect that. But this one just felt like really, it was like, hey, if something's bothering you, make sure you tell somebody about it. Because if Scott had bothered to tell somebody about what was bothering him, it would. Well, he didn't know he was Moonman. I don't.
Yeah, that's the thing. He just. Yeah, exactly. He didn't.
This
realize
one fell low for it. John, is anything bothering you? You should tell people about it. That's the lesson we learned from the Bat message. Is there anything bothering you on your mind?
Right now? No, actually,
yeah.
I'm
your co-host can't remember the name of the character.
I'm in a good mood. I mean, I loved it all. So, all right, then, as we come to the end here of this episode of the Batcave podcast, Joe, let's talk a little bit about Comic Book Central. How are things going over there? How can people, get in on this? And as you say, and I'm going to put you on the spot here. Do you remember what episode number it was that Will appeared on that we could access it? If not, I'll definitely put the links in the show notes.
Yeah, that was episode 254. Louise Williams was my guest on that episode. She played Jaina on Super Friends, so it seemed natural fit to get the authors of the Super Friends companion on there. So Will Rogers and Billy Ray Bates were also on there as well, so you can check out a lot of Super Friends goodness. Comicbookcentral.net is the website. The archive is on there as well, so you can just go back through the episodes. The easiest way, though, is Apple Podcasts. With your podcasts, many podcast as well. The best way to do is subscribe. That way you get every episode that comes in. Spreaker.com. It's got its page there, so you can check them out there. Yeah, a lot of good stuff coming up. I haven't locked in any recorded. As we record this episode, I'm setting up a bunch of episodes to record. So I'm looking at some Flash-themed episodes coming up.
Ooh.
The Flash TV show. I haven't done a little bit. I used to do a couple of Februaries in a row. I used to do Flashback, Flash Forward February and had a whole month of guests on from the Flash TV series, the new one. So we're looking at some of that. I've got a lot of good stuff coming up as well, too. So one big guest that I'm working on, haven't locked it in completely yet, but stay tuned for that. If you follow me on social media, if you follow Comic Book Central on social media, Comic Book Central, Facebook.com/Comic Book Central Network, and Twitter @ComicBookCTRL, you will definitely find out when I announce that. And I'm also going to be going to Wizard World Cleveland coming up here. So probably depending on when this episode airs, I will have been there already or about to go. And so some of the guests there I like to interview in depth ahead of the show. So I'm reaching out to Tyler Hoechlin, who played Superman, Jesse Rath, who plays Brainy on the show. So we're looking at some of those, just working out schedule-wise. So if you happen to be going to Wizard World Cleveland, you're going to be hopefully hearing some in-depth interviews on Comic Book Central with some of these guests as well. Plus whatever I can run around and record at the show. Usually I get a bunch of really cool creator interviews while I'm at these things. So you can check that out as well.
Very cool. Brainy's one of my favorite characters on Supergirl.
He's changed so much too. Yes. Like, especially this season, like there's so many, like you could tell they started really writing toward that character because there's so many things going on there. So yeah, it's been a fun ride on that show. It's a pretty cool arc.
Yes, absolutely. Well, looking forward to that. Looking forward to having you back here again as we talk next time, as you mentioned, Catwoman in our next episode. Yeah.
Oh, I'm looking forward to that one. Yeah. Too in a new costume. In a new costume
with a better voice.
Yeah. With a lovely and talented Melanie Britt.
Yes.
She does a lot, all the female voices on there. So yeah, she does a fantastic job.
She does. The episode's called Trouble Identity. And once again, we're dealing with like some sort of energy of sorts. Catwoman steals a device that turns garbage into fabric, and Batgirl gets the blame.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Well, I can't wait for this one.
I know. This is going to be fun. I'm enjoying this. I like I said, when I initially did it, I was like, maybe I'm going too far, but I'm like, it's Adam and Bert. We should talk it, or maybe it just deserves one episode just going over the whole thing. But there's a lot to mine here and a lot to talk about, and I'm looking forward to sharing it with our audience and with you, Joe.
Yeah, this is fun. And like I said, this was kind of like my Batman back in the day. This was the one on Saturday morning, that whole CBS lineup. I mean, you go into like Google CBS Saturday morning lineup 70s, and you just see everything they had. Shazam, ISIS, Batman, Tarzan, what was it, like Arc 2 and I think Space Academy was at CBS. And they're just like that whole lineup. I just remember like, and Scheimer talks about this in that book that I referenced earlier. He talks about the fact that they basically had the entire CBS Saturday morning lineup.
Yes.
At one point. And then at one point they were trying to move it over to ABC. Like they were trying to do deals with ABC, and it just like was this Filmation takeover on Saturday morning. So this was like right there. And the other cool thing is they were trying to do live action with Adam and Bert on these. They were trying to do like some intros and tags and different. It just didn't work out. We didn't get another live action. We got that in the Legends of the Superheroes.
Yes.
Which I've talked about extensively on Comic Book Central. Yeah, but it just that whole block of Filmation on Saturday morning, I love it. So I kind of like going back and looking at those old ads and going, yeah, that was like 3.5 hours of my Saturday. Right there. That's what I did, man.
Yeah, exactly. That was me too.
Enjoying reliving it. Yeah, I'm enjoying reliving it.
Yeah, look at me now, 40 years later, talking about it on a podcast.
We haven't grown at all as individuals, have we?
No, I guess not.
Pretty much the same thing.
Although 7-year-old me is all excited and going, you could do that in the future? I love it.
I want a gyro too.
Yes, that too. So, folks, thanks once again for listening. Make sure you're checking out all the great stuff we're doing here, continuing our looks at the Batman 66, comic book, the 1943 serial, the Electra Woman and Dyna Girl series, Monster Squad, our Some Days You Can't Get Rid of a Bomb series. And of course, Joe and I will be back real soon with episode 3 of the New Adventures of Batman from Filmation 1977. Until then, citizens, thank you so much for listening. Once again, Joe, everyone, take care.
Far out.
Thanks for listening, chums. I don't have a bat phone, but you can contact the Batcave Podcast through its Facebook page, Twitter, email at thebatcavepodcast@gmail.com, subscribe to the podcast via Libsyn.com, that's LIBSYN.com, or through iTunes. The Batcave Podcast is part of a series of pop culture podcasts from the Chronic Rift Network. Find them at chronicrift.com. So until next time, citizens, same bat time, same Batcave Podcast.